welcome to you all. My name is Andrew Chung. I'm artistic producer of London Symphonia, and you're joining us for Behind the Music. So for today's episode of Behind the Music, I welcome Julia MacGregor. Hello, Julia.
Hello, Andrew. Lovely to be here.
Oh, it's great to have you too. I'm so excited to speak with you. So today, I want you all to learn a little bit more about Julia. Julia is a fabulous core cellist, recently retired from performing with London Symphonia. And so I just wanted to take this opportunity today to give our viewers a chance to say their thanks through their video screens and to chat with you, Julia, about your amazing career that you've had as a cellist, performer, and teacher. And yeah. So away we go. You know, I'm going to start by reading a little bit of a bio about Julia, very brief. So British born, if you couldn't tell, cellist, Julia MacGregor is a recently retired member of London Symphonia, in addition to being a member of the Stratford Festival Orchestra and principal cellist of the Bach Festival of Canada Orchestra. Julia has performed the Boccherini, Elgar, Mon, Rodrigo, Saint-Saëns, and Vivaldi concertos with orchestra, and has given numerous solo and chamber recitals in England and Canada. She studied at the Royal Northern College of Music in Manchester, England, with Raphael Sommer and subsequently Ralph Kirschbaum. And she received a number of awards and scholarships as part of her time there. Further study took place in Northern Illinois with members of the Vermeer Quartet, and these are Mark Johnson and Raya Garbusova. And she gained intensive study in chamber music and a master's degree in cello performance. So this is all about Julia. And, you know, I want people to understand just this extraordinary arc of a career you've had that's not done. Like, you're still teaching and you're still performing, but how you came to London, Ontario. So going back to the European Community Youth Orchestra, this was amazing. Like, you were working with music royalty, Herbert von Karajan, Claudio Abbado, Anne-Sophie Mutter, and you met, you know, the Pope, John Paul II. So I understand. So what is a highlight from this formative time that really stands out for you?
Well, that was an amazing period. We would meet in the holidays because we were all students. The oldest people in the orchestra actually were 26 years old or under, but the youngest was 14. Wow. So there was this incredible group of young players who were from 10 different countries. And we would meet for 6 weeks in the summer, 2 weeks in at Easter. And then a few of us many people were in the chamber orchestra as well, which met at the Christmas that year. So I was just in it 1 year, and it was really formidable, amazing. And it's incredible to have that many very strong players playing together so enthusiastically, and it was all paid for by the governments, actually. So everyone just went and had a great time making this amazing music. With Claudio Abbado was the musical director, and actually Herbert von Karajan asked him if he could conduct us in the Salzburg Festival, and that was with Anne-Sophie Mutter, and that was a huge honor to be part of that.
Wow. And she would have been fairly young in the career then too, right?
She was 19 years old.
Oh my goodness.
Just beautiful, very quietly, very confident, but such a beautiful confidence about her.
Wow. Yeah. And, you know, there's the National Youth Orchestra in Canada that offers a similar thing, but it's not quite as international as such as that European youth orchestra. I just, all these different cultures coming together would be just an amazing thing.
Yes, but the Canadian National Youth Orchestra is very, very fine, I think.
Yeah, they're an amazing performing ensemble. What they can manage to do in such a short period of time is really extraordinary.
Yeah.
But there's all this great energy and just incredible commitment to do their best. They're all everyone's putting in 200%. It's great.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
So Ralph Kirschbaum, he's really one of the foremost cellists of his generation. And you studied with him at Northern College, Royal Northern College of Music. So I was just wondering, beyond that technique, which he obviously imparted to you, I'm sure that saw you, throughout your professional career, what are a couple of other things that he taught that have always stuck with you, that you always come back to?
Well, the reason I wanted to study with him was because he had made an amazing sound, continues to make an amazing sound. And I really wanted to explore that very deep, rich American sound, I guess you would call it, and I think, well, I'd gone to a masterclass actually prior to starting with Ralph Kirschbaum with Zara Nelsova, and she had this amazing sound. If you listen to Shlomo by Bloch, her sound and playing that piece is just remarkable. So I kept kind of dreaming about this sound I would love to make on the cello, which I clearly was not making at all. And then I had this chance with Zara Nelsova, and she told me, well, this is what you've got to do. So I'll share this with you. She said, you've got to spend 5 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes every day, long, slow bows near the bridge with lots of different dynamics. And so that was the start of it. But then I went to Ralph Kirschbaum, who only took on 5 students at any time. And so it was a great privilege to be in his class. And he was incredibly generous with his time when he was there. So it's very lucky.
Very lucky. A master teacher who's not a tyrant.
Oh, it's fantastic to be so intelligent, such a beautiful cellist, and such a wonderful human being. He really has it all. Yeah.
That's so important. And so I gather that you worked with the Vermeer Quartet, and they would come to Royal Northern College, and they would give master classes, but then you ended up spending time with them in the US.
I did, because I played, they would just come once a year, give extraordinary concerts, and spend a couple of days doing master classes with chamber groups. So it was wonderful. Did the Brahms clarinet trio for Mark Johnson playing, and quartets and such with Schmuel, wonderful coaches. But then when I went to America, because Mark Johnson invited me to go, and he said that I would get an assistantship to study there, and that I would teach one of the younger quartets at the university and teach some education majors and have the time to really study chamber music.
But
so
you were in London at the time, or were you in, is Royal Northern College, is that in Manchester?
That's in Manchester, yes.
You were in Manchester, which is very busy, and
a big musical center. Yeah.
And then you're going to Northern Illinois, and
yes. What I noticed most was the difference in the sky. In Manchester, the sky was always kind of orange at night, right? And then, because it's a big city, a very big city. And then I arrived in Chicago, and then had to get the Greyhound bus with everything, the cello and the suitcase and whatnot. And I thought, well, we must be getting to DeKalb soon. And in fact, we'd actually driven through DeKalb, and I hadn't kind of known because it was pretty late when we got there. And yeah, so it's grown up a lot now. I've been back and it's much bigger. But anyway, the university was wonderful for strings, really wonderful, because they had Mark Johnson, the cellist, and the quartet, but they also had Raya Gavasova teaching there as well. So I was very lucky to spend some time with Raya as well.
And so I guess it's just that firm belief that good music teaching can happen anywhere. It can happen in a cornfield. It can happen in London. It can happen, the biggest metropolis of the world. But if you get a teacher and you have a good connection with someone who's going to show you what you need to know at that time, then it can happen anywhere.
Yes. If you're lucky to find them, right? If you
There's a bit of luck involved for sure.
And having your personalities have to click too. It's not all about how you play, is it? It's personality is very important too. I back on Ralph Kirschbaum, I did, when you asked me that question, I wanted to say that he's remarkably skilled at changing things without you realizing that he's doing so.
Right.
It's very subtle. So you don't feel like, oh my God, I've got to make this massive, great switch. It was easy to embrace what he wanted you to do.
And that's not a given that great performers are great teachers either, right? That's rare. When you've got someone who can impart that knowledge, who's successful as a performer and can impart it without just encouraging you along the way.
That's right. It doesn't always come, they don't always come hand in hand. You're right. But there are so many wonderful teachers now, aren't there?
And so you finished the study with the Vermeer Quartet, and then you headed back to England.
Yes, I did.
And
I was with Ian at this time. We'd already met.
Your husband Ian,
a while ago, actually, before that.
Say that one more time.
We'd met quite a long time before that. So, yeah.
And this was in Toronto?
Well, yes. I came over with 9 other players from the Royal Northern. And so 10 of us came over to play in a Canadian orchestra, which was conducted by Victor Feldbrill. And we spent 3 weeks in Toronto rehearsing. And then we went for 3 weeks to Hawaii, to 4 islands. And that was great. And in fact, one person from Orchestra London days, Linda Umbrico, she was on that tour with me. That's when we first met.
Interesting.
And Daniel Dom was the soloist. He came with us and played Boccherini, B-flat concerto.
Very cool. Very cool. And then somehow you ended up performing musicals in the West End. And
in London, are you talking in London, England?
Yep.
I did. I was principal cellist for that. There were 3 of us, 3 cellists in that. And it was with Jane Laportaire was the main character on stage. And we thought it was going to be a much longer run. But anyway, it was 8 shows a week. It seemed like so much work.
It's a lot of work.
I do this all the time in Stratford. Lots of people do it in Stratford.
Yeah. But early on in your career, that kind of thing is exhausting. you know?
But the great thing about that job, we were allowed to book off at any time if we had something else that we wanted to do.
Right.
So that was that was great, because one time I was asked to be do a pop session because my friend couldn't do it, and it was with Elvis Costello when he was making the Punch the Clock album. So this job at the theatre, it came just at the right time, for me then, and I was doing various other things in London, and it was all coming along.
And so you're in one of the big music centers in the world for classical music and just freelancing, and you decide to move back to Canada.
I know.
So, and you're with Ian at the time, who's Canadian.
I was married to Ian by this time.
Oh, you're married to Ian, okay.
Yes.
And so what was that decision like? What like, obviously there's so many things.
Seems such an enormously rash decision, doesn't it? It was a massive decision to make, but we made it very quickly, really. Just thought, well, look, let's give it a try in Canada. It's what we'll have. I saw it all as a big adventure, really. Yeah. And I'd already been here. I came up here one summer when I was studying at Northern Illinois, and did a recital at the art gallery. And back in those days, I just sort of would phone up. I just happened to phone up the art gallery and said, would you like a cello recital? I do quite a lot of these things. And she, strangely enough, she was just setting up a brown, they called it a brown bag lunchtime series.
Oh. Nice.
So there'd been a couple of them before me, and she said, oh yes, come along. And so I found a pianist here, a very nice woman who I played with in the early days, Nancy Proctor. And so we played here. And then Ian's mother put on this beautiful party. We got a full house at the concert, and
amazing.
It was just things sort of just happened as they always do, right?
So you and Ian, so you set up shop in London, Ontario, and this was the beginning of. Well, you moved in 87, or was it 80?
No, oh no, 83, end of 83.
End of 83.
Yes, so we actually had a cello, a typewriter, 12 boxes, and I was expecting Jonathan.
Amazing.
Going to be born in March. Wow. So there we go.
And then you started your work with Orchestra London. You started your work with Orchestra London just like 3 years after that, 4 years after you guys arrived?
I think 2.5 years
okay.
after that. I think I did an audition for it to be an extra. That was the first audition I did.
Yeah.
So I did that, and then got to know Alexis and Christine and people in the orchestra. And
this is Alexis Hauser.
Yes, and at that time Ed Minovich was the concertmaster.
Amazing.
Yeah, and then this lovely opportunity presented itself, whereby one of the cellists was going to go and study for a year. Mm-hmm. So there was this 1 year opening.
And right. For a full-time spot in the orchestra.
For a full-time spot.
Okay.
So I suddenly I had to do a North American audition, which is quite different actually to anything I'd auditioned for before.
And in Europe, they often use a trial system, right? Like,
yes, they do.
They can have auditions too, but trial is. So by that, I mean that the prospective musician would perform a number of concerts with that group, and then they decide based on that.
Yeah. You might have 6 weeks or 3 months or even longer to sit in the section.
And here you had to do an audition
and a list, the list of orchestral,
of all the hardest bits.
All the hardest bits. So there I was, as soon as the kids, well, it was only Jonathan at that time. So I had to, when he had a nap, I'd be practicing like mad. And then at night, I would practice a lot too.
And you're juggling all this, putting family first, and, trying to, etch out a professional career, honoring your training and following your path as a professional cellist.
Yes. I always wanted to have a family. I was really big. It was really big for me. I wanted to have children. I didn't just want one. Definitely wanted. Yeah, 3 was good for me.
That's what you ended up with.
Yes. And I got a daughter too. 2 boys and a girl. So that was great.
Fantastic. Never easy to juggle family and setting up as a performing artist in a new city. It's a challenge.
Yeah, it is.
For sure.
But it's very good for you to have to just be on your own and just do it. Literally just get on with it. It gives you build up quite a lot of strength, really. To be your own person is important.
Multitasking.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Oh yes. And so Alexis Hauser was the conductor. I'm guessing there were probably 25 programs, maybe 28, 30 programs every year that were being put on by the full-time orchestra.
Yes, I can't remember. I've never counted them really. But it was busy from the end of September through till May. Yeah. And I remember, it was sort of getting to April, and I was thinking, oh gosh, couldn't this cellist just get a really nice opportunity somewhere else? Because I would have loved to have auditioned again, to be in the orchestra. I always felt chamber orchestra was my thing.
That was your niche.
Yeah.
But you ended up with a part-time position.
I did, but it always felt like it wasn't like it was 6 cellists at the time. So yes, it was a symphony orchestra, but it wasn't a big symphony orchestra. I wouldn't have wanted to be in a big one, except ECYO, which was huge. 16 cellists in that orchestra. that was fun, yeah.
So, but being part-time is not all bad because it allows you to do a lot of other stuff, right? So let's consider, like, you've been with the Stratford Festival. I mean, you must have done 15 seasons with them, right? Doing all sorts of musicals and
I've done a lot with Stratford, and I identify with Stratford very strongly because it's just so colourful. That the whole environment is very colourful.
It's different.
So that's been one excellent other organisation to be involved with. But and so if you're part-time with the orchestra, it has its benefits, let's say that. Unfortunately, they dropped a cellist when one cellist left, who was a part-timer. They never filled that position again, which was a real shame. However, it was very pleasant because I was number 5, and I would have a stand to myself, and I would be able to see the conductor straight ahead. Had lots of room to play, was never bowing into anyone. And it was actually a very nice position, a beautiful position to sit.
Great.
But anyway, it worked out.
And so, so Orchestra London at that time, Stratford Festival, you're doing chamber music. Also a lot of work with Gerald Fagan, right?
I did a lot of work for Gerry Fagan, and Marlene and Jerry ran a wonderful organization for many, many years. Yeah. And I was very close to them too. I still am. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. That's great. And so how did this decision to retire from London Symphonia come about?
I knew you were going to put that one out there. Yeah.
Hopefully it's nothing I've done wrong.
Nothing at all. I only have a huge amount of respect for you, Andrew, for what you're doing, have done, and continue to do, right? But, well, I just started to think of musicians do have, you've got to be aware of your best before date, I think. And it's very hard to leave. And everyone's different. It's a different time for everyone. Some people can keep playing professionally or in the same group for many, many years. But, you know, I'd really sat in the orchestra for a long time. It's, how many years is it?
I think it's 34 years by my math.
34 years. I mean,
that's some time. Mm-hmm.
It's a very, very long time. And I started to think that other people should be having this opportunity. And maybe I'm very conscious of that because of all the teaching I do. I think, you know, I've encouraged students to go to McGill and Western and, you know, Ottawa. They're also studying and they need opportunities. Mm-hmm. And I just thought, yeah, you know, I've had a lovely time. I want other people to, I just wanted to move over, is the truth of it.
And I guess it was shortly after a concert with Matthias Moth, right? It was a Haydn and Mozart concert that.
That's right. And it was a beautiful concert, and he was excellent, I thought. I think we all felt that, didn't we?
Yeah.
We all loved that concert, and the way he rehearsed was absolutely brilliant. Mm-hmm. So organized, yet so artistic. Held us all. He held our attention all the time, and we would have had one more concert because wasn't Lara St. John going to do a concert?
Yeah,
and then COVID happened, and
that was cancelled. Yeah.
So I didn't quite finish the season, which that was a shame. But anyway,
but we ended on a good note.
Definitely, yeah. A very high note, I think, with having Matthias. I hope he comes back and conducts a whole bunch more.
Yeah, we're definitely going to arrange that. Yes. And so, Julia, you're retired from London Symphonia now, but you're still continuing to teach, and you're co-directing a program. Can you tell me just a little bit about that?
Yes, well, I think co-directing, it does say on my on the website that I co-direct, but I think it would be fair to say Irene directs. Irene Tamberg is the director, and I'm there in very limited ways because I'm not very good on the computer and all that, really. But anyway, I'm very involved because I teach chamber music twice a week.
And it's called YAPCA, which is Young Artists
Pre-College Academy.
Ah, that's it.
Yeah, and you need to be really RCM grade 6 level to be ready to enter the program. So it's kids of grade 6 up to any level. Mm-hmm. You know, we've got some very talented students who are playing post grade 10 level. But it's quite small, so that it's not a lot of people in it at this point. It's about 25 students, I think, would be part of it. And we have these groups that are playing beautiful repertoire. Yeah.
Right. So this is, playing masterpieces, essentially. You said that you were coaching someone on the Revel string quartet, and
yes, we're just doing the first 2 movements, and the oldest student is in grade 11, and but the youngest one, I believe, is in grade 8.
Amazing.
School, grade 8 school. She's very, very, well, the 4 of them are wonderful young players. So, and there are other groups as well. There's the Mendelssohn Octet that Mel Martin is coaching.
Wonderful.
And other groups as well. And
so this must feel like it's come full circle a little bit, right? I mean, you're able to inspire these young people much in chamber music, which is one of your loves and passions, I'm sure you think back to your early days when you were that age.
I do. I do, especially with this Revel, because the students actually are listening to the Britain String Quartet, which is a remarkable group that isn't together anymore, but they had about 10 to 15 years, I believe, of being a professional group. And actually, the first violin of that quartet was the violinist I played with when I first went to Manchester. We were in a quartet together for 3 years. So I'm teaching this Revel, listening to Pete Manning, who was a very good friend as well as being a great guy to work with. And we're listening to him, and they're influencing this young group in Canada. It's kind of a beautiful thing, really.
It's a beautiful thing. Oh, I'm so glad you're still teaching and contributing to musical life in London. And I've run out of time for today.
Oh, right. Well, that went very quickly.
It went by super fast. But so Julia, on behalf of London and the region of London and the hundreds of thousands of people who you've entertained over decades performing in London, a big thank you.
Well, thank you, Andrew. The pleasure's all mine.
Oh, it's been great to have you today. And
we didn't get to the Pope, though, did we?
And that's for the second volume. That's for the second installment. But thank you so much, Julia. This has been an absolute delight speaking with you.
Great. Thank you, Andrew. Bye.
Okay. Bye.